back. New video, new information, a new book. Here it is. Negro question part 6. 13 Black Colonies. Get it? $25. Here's a quick description of it. You can read it yourself, whatever. $25. Whole bunch of information in here. We're gonna go over it. Well, I'm gonna go over it. I'm gonna read uh, some memoirs from here. Service Agent John Macky. And if you can, just read. He's given us descriptions of black princes, nobles, dukes, etc., etc. We're gonna go through all that today. And to the left of me, I have the book in question, Memoirs of John Macky, published original manuscript by his son, so Spring Macky Esquire, second edition. Secret Agent, Secret Services, John Macky Esquire. His memoirs, historical memoirs of a secret agent, a spy. Anyways, this is in general, this is just a great Mr. Lee Cummings, great author, great series. Negro Question, I have 5, 6, and 7 awesome books. I think I might have 4 awesome books. $25. They're not going to cost you anything more than that. I don't think. Uh, this one is also great. This is the 7th book. But yeah, go ahead and get it. I'm not going to spend too much time. Let's go ahead and get into the memoirs of John Macky. First, let's go ahead and go on Wikipedia and see John Macky is. He's a Scottish spy. Um, he was, let me see, a spy for Princess Sophia. This is Sophia of Hanover. This is supposedly what she looked like. Wikipedia. Let's just go ahead and read this. Memoirs of the Secret Services of John Macky, Esquire, during the reign of King William, Queen Anne, and King George I, including also the true secret history of the rise, promotions of the English and Scots nobility, officers, civil, military, naval, and other persons of distinction from the Revolution in their respective characters at large, drawn up by Mr. Mackey. They're drawn up. There should be images. Pursuant to the direction of Her Royal Highness, the Princess Sophia. Princess Sophia, right here. All right. This is a lot of information. I'm gonna cram it and just present it. It should not. I'm not gonna go really in depth. You should get some free time, read this book. I might not get through 50 pages of it, but let's do what we can, and that's it. All right. Here is, I believe, this is just from his son. I'm gonna go ahead and read it. To the Prince of Wales, it is humbly presumed that there will not need any stronger motive to incite your Royal Highness perusal of these papers and the authority of your most illustrious predecessor, whose stamp they bear. The great esteem which the Electress Dowager of Hanover had for Mr. Mackey's services is here apparent under her own hand. All, therefore, that is farther necessary is only to assure your Royal Highness that these characters are faithfully printed from the author's original manuscript and were drawn up by the direction of the Princess Sophia, as it is attested both by himself and his son. Actually, that's not from his son. Hmm. Anyways, John Mackey was in the service of Sophia of Hanover. He was a spy. Here's the table of contents. Let's see. This pretty much just goes through the whole book, kind of just giving us everything. Table of contents or the contents. A letter from Mr. Mackey's son attesting the the genuineness of his work. I'm just it's kind of small. Anyways, a memorial of his father's services and sufferings drawn up by himself. Mr. Mackey, sent to France by King William, returns with important advices, is made inspector of the coast from Harwich to Dover, discovers a plot and writes a view of King James Court at Saint Germain, of which trades 30,000 were fold 1696. King William gives him the directions of the packet boats from Dover to France and Flanders. Mr. Mackey sent again by King William to France, where he makes great discoveries. All the expresses during the partition treaty went through his hands. The great loss he sustained by King William's death, his packet boats laid aside. Mr. Mackey goes to the courts of Germany, and at the Princess Sophia's desire gave her the characters of the English and Scots nobility. Then he sent by Lord Godolphin to Flanders to settle an intercourse of letters between England and those countries. Has the direction of the packet boats to has the direction of the packet boats to Ostend and makes great discoveries. Lord Bolingbroke's base treatment of Mr. Mackey on his detection of Mr. Prior Montague's manager and Abby Gautier's going privately to France. The Earl of Oxford takes away his packet boats. His creditors set upon him and he is thrown into prison. Mr. Mackey set at liberty on the accession of King George I and has the packet boats to Dublin given him, but loses thereby. Is sent to Flanders and for his services generously rewarded by Sir Randolph Walpole. His death and burial in Holland. A view of 5 years history of King James Court at Saint Germain in Laye in France. A second letter from Mr. Mackey's son. Okay, there we go. Go ahead and move this back. All right, to the editor. I don't gotta read that. A lot of this is the importance King James and his descendants. James one, important man, important man. In the past video, I said King James Black. I didn't have any. Well, I didn't want to say anything, or I didn't want to change the subject of what I was talking to. But the importance when people say King James Black, then they need to understand the stuff that he did. The West Virginia Charter. King James is black, then a black man had a charter to bring people over to America. I mean, this, anyways, King James, before he was changed to King James the First, King James Six, um, and his descendants, Charles One, Charles Two. All of this is in. It kind of just talks about him in this kind of part. The editor, um, and we're gonna it goes it's gonna talk about these people some more once we get to the descriptions. Probably not really King James, but Charles II, who were descendants of King James. King Charles was, I think, the second son of King James. Yeah, there we go. Second son of King James. And then Charles II was King Charles's son, the eldest surviving child of King Charles, one of England and England, Scotland, Ireland, and Henrietta. Yes. So we're actually going to hear mostly of King Charles II, but keep in mind he is a direct descendant of King James. So if this guy is quote unquote black, then I mean, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna read. I'm just gonna read, and you can decide whatever you want to decide. So here we go. I have a whole bunch of tabs open. Let me just put it back to Sophia. Actually, I'll go to the book because you need to get this book. It has also some interesting things from these people. I will probably talk about this guy in a different video because he had some interesting stuff to say. But that's for a different topic, different day. I'm gonna stick with this book. So let's. All right, let's go ahead. All right. I was thinking about reading all of this stuff. I have read it. I'm still trying to understand, comprehend all of it. So I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna go to the descriptions. All right. Characters of the court of Great Britain. I'm just gonna read. There's some people I'm gonna highlight, but there's also some people I'm not gonna kind of touch on today. But I'm gonna read them anyway. All right. His Royal Highness Prince George, husband to Queen Anne, the Lord High Admiral of England, his brother to the late King of Denmark, and uncle to the present, was chosen by King Charles II to be husband to his niece, the Princess Anne, because having no dominions of his own to gratify, he would have nothing else in view but the interests of England in the reign of King Charles II, having little English and being naturally modest, he made no considerable figure, nor in the reign of King James, till the increase of popery alarming the whole nation. He concurred with the rest of the Protestant nobility for the bringing over the Prince of Orange, and with his princess left the court to join that party. During all King William's reign, he never entered into the administration, yet came always to Parliament regularly, and often to court, diverted himself with hunting, and never openly declared himself to any party. On the Queen's accession to the crown, he was made Lord High Admiral of England and Warden of the King Ports. King okay, butcher that. Um, He is a prince of a familiar early disposition, with a good, sound understanding, but modest in showing it, a great lover of the High Church of England. The nearer it comes to Lutheranism, this is this he often shews to shews by his vote in the House of Peers. Otherwise he does not much meddle with affairs out of his office. He is very fat, loves news, his bottle, and the queen, by whom he has made many children, but none alive. He has neither many friends nor enemies in England. On the queen's ascension to the throne, he was toward 50 years old. Okay. John Churchill, Duke of Marlborough, Captain General, is son to Sir Winston Churchill of a good family, the Duke of York's love for his sister, by whom he had the Duke of Berwick and other children, first brought him to court, and the beauty of his own person and his good address so gained on the Duchess of Cleveland. Sorry, when mistress to King Charles II, then mistress then mistress, the King Charles II, that he that she let me see that she effectively established him there. When the Duke of York was sent to Scotland, he was of his family, and there made a lord by the title of Lord Amount, and on that prince's coming to the throne, created a Baron of England by the title of Lord Churchill. He continued one of the King James' chief favorites all that prince's reign was of his council and a major general of his army. But the great progress of popery shocked him. His love to his country counterbalanced all King James' favors, and drew him from that prince's person to the interest of his country, which he handsomely expressed in a letter he sent to his majesty, giving much the same reason that Brutus did for joining against Caesar. He was the great instrument of bringing over the army to the Prince of Orange, and to the admiration of everybody. With a handful of men reduced Cork and King Vale in Ireland, with their numerous garrisons, to King William's obedience, and on his accession to the throne was made Earl of Marlborough and general of his forces, in which post he served also in Flanders, with universal applause. On some difference still a secret to the generality of the world, he was thrown out of all, and the princess of Denmark, now queen, in disgrace with the king and her sister the queen, for taking his and his lady's part. Towards the end of King William's reign, he was restored to his majesty's favor, and was made governor to the Duke of Glouc- Gloucester. I have no idea. One of the Lords Justices and plenipotentiary in Holland. On the Queen's accession to the throne, he was made Captain General of all the forces, created a Duke, had the Garter, and Master of Ordnance. He is a tall, handsome man for his age, with a very obliging address, of a wonderful presence of mind, so as hardly ever to be discomposed, of a very clean head and sound judgment, very bold, never daunted for want of success, every way capable of being a great man, if the great success of his arms and the heaps of favor thrown upon him by his sovereign does not raise his thoughts above the rest of the nobility, and consequently draw upon him the envy of the people of England. He is turned of 50 years of age. As England owes entirely to his conduct the making that great turn of affairs at the Revolution without the shedding of blood, so does all Europe the saving the empire by his quick reduction of the Bishop of Cologne, his march to the Danube, and reducing of Bavaria was his own contrivance, and executed with a bravery hardly to be paralleled in any history, has got him so great reputation as to make him also the growing hopes of Italy, which groans which grounds under the weight of the present French power. James, Duke of Ormond, Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, is grandson to the Duke who was Lord Lieutenant most of King Charles II reign, and son to the Earl of Ossory, who was general in Holland. He was, when very young, chosen by the University of Oxford to be their chancellor, and to his power then opposed the growth of popery and the despotic measures of King James' court, which he left, along with Prince George, at the Revolution and declared for the laws and liberties of his country. All King William's reign he was a faithful follower of his person, and for him, attended him in all his campaigns, was captain of his horse guards, gentleman of his bedchamber, and lieutenant general of his army. His expenses were so great abroad that it may be said he gained more reputation by his generosity than many generals have by their armies, and did a great deal of honor to his country to the lessening his own estate. On the Queen's accession to the throne, he had the command given him of the expedition to Cadiz, which miscarried not by his fault, as appeared plainly in the examination of the affair in the House of Peers, and he had the good luck in his return to burn the French fleet at Vigo, and to assist at the Solemn de Doom sung by the Queen at St. Paul's for that expedition. When it appeared how much he was the darling of the people, who neglected their sovereign and applauded him more, perhaps, than ever any subject was on any occasion, he was sent soon after Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, where he governs with more affection from the people, and his court is in greater splendor than ever was known in the kingdom. He certainly is one of the most generous, princely, brave men that ever was, but good natured to a fault, loves glory, and consequently is crowded with flatterers. Never knew how to refuse anybody, which was the reason why he obtained so little from King William, asking for everybody. He has all the qualities of a great man, except that one of a statesman, hating business. Let me see. Loves and is beloved by the ladies, of a low stature but well shaped, a good mind and address, a fair complexion and very beautiful face. He is about 40 years old. Charles, Duke of Shrewsbury. Let's see. Is the representative of the ancient and noble family of Talbot, Earls of Shrewsbury, so famous in the reigns of our Edwards and Henrys. He was brought up in the religion of his family, which has been always Roman Catholics. But when he came to the years of man, he reasoned himself out of it at a time when it began again to revive in England, and took so much pains to distinguish the right from the wrong, before he declared that it is to his conversion he we owe the best pieces, the best pe yeah, best that ever were wrote on the controversies published by Dr. Tillotson, on King James assuming to himself the dispensing of power, on King James assuming to himself the dispensing power, this great this great man left the kingdom, entered into the measures which were then concerted for the saving his country, and came over the revolution with the Prince of Orange, and although very young, was, to the general satisfaction of the people, made sole Secretary of State. The king, some little time after this, after his coming to the crown, fell in with a set of people that opposed him. This gentleman would not mix with them, but drew down the seals, and after leading a quiet life for some years, was with great difficulty prevailed on to take them up again. Was created a duke, had the garter and president of the council, till an unhappy fall from his horse so bruised him as to render him incapable to attend business, for which reason pressed the king to the discharge from his he pressed the king to be discharged from his weighty office and was made Lord Chamberlain. But his spitting of blood continuing to a violent degree, he was he was necessitated to give up all his employments. His leaving England at a time when the partition treaty began to be questioned gave occasion for his enemies to say that he fled from the storm. And yet his interest was so great in the House of Commons that his very name had thrown the impeachment out, if the adverse party had not, for that very reason, kept it out of the impeachment. And King William was used to say that the Duke of Shrewsbury was the only man the Whigs and the Tories both spoke well of. The manner of the French king's receiving him at Versailles gave a handle to his enemies to say that he was still in some intrigue of state, and King William obliging him to go to that court, contrary to his inclinations, looked as if the king was in the plot to render him suspected to the people. As his going to Rome made them say he was declared a Roman Catholic again. He was always a courtier when the court went always from the interests of his country. But when they made a step that was not so, he went out of the great offices with as much ease as he shifted his cloths, for which reason it may be said King William rather esteemed him than loved him, and his character was so much above being stained by the little plots which were contrived against him by my Lord Peterborough and Dr. Davenant, that both Houses of Parliament voted them scandalous, without his ever saying a word for himself. And yet the court seemed inclined to give him a blow at his juncture, for they feared, for they searched as low as even the passage office to see if pass had flipped a pass had shipped his office at the assignation, but all proved clear. Never was a greater mixture of honor, virtue, and good sense in any one person than in him, a great man attended with a sweetness of behavior and easiness of conversation, which charms all who come near. Nothing of the stiffness of a statesman, yet the capacity and knowledge of a piercing wit. He speaks French and Italian as well as his native language, and although but one eye, yet he has a very charming countenance and is the most generally beloved by the ladies of any gentleman at his time. He is turned 40 years old. Charles, Duke of Somerset, Master of the Horse, of the ancient family of Seymour, who made so great a figure in the reign of Edward VI. This duke, in the reign of King Charles II, had the garter and married the heiress of Piercy of Northumberland, which much increased his estate, but he made no considerable figure. Still the reign of King James, when, being in waiting at Bain Chambermain, at the arrival of the Pope's nuncio in England, and refusing to assist at the ceremony of the introduction, he was dismissed from all his employments. He, notwithstanding, did not enter into the measures of the Revolution, but for some years warmly opposed the designs of King William's ministry, joined of impeaching the partition, and protested against according those who advised it. Yet, upon the French king sending the Duke of Anjou to Spain, he came over to the service of his country, and was made president of the council, and joined with a great deal of zeal in the methods concerted for preventing the growing power of France. On the Queen's ascension to the throne, he was made Master of the Horse and appears at court with a great deal of warmth for a party that seems to suffer by King William's death. He is of a middle stature, well shaped, a very black complexion, a lover of music and poetry, a good judgment, but by reason of his great hesitation in his speech, wants expression. He is about 42 years old. And on my right, I have a picture of Charles Seymour, um, Duke of Somerset, made Master of the Horses. Let's see. Yep, Master of the Horse. Let's see. Let's see his. Let me read it again. He is a middle stature, well shaped, a very black complexion. The spy said he was of black complexion. Here's his Wikipedia page. Um, here's his arms. Here is a picture of him. Wow, isn't that funny? Look how this man is looking. Look at how this man. Look at how dude's look. Who is this? Who look at the dog? Like who is this motherfucker? Who is this guy? It's not him. He's supposed. Who? I'm not supposed to. He's snatching this shit back. He's like, I'm not giving you this shit. That's how he looks. He doesn't look like he's giving it to him. He's like, who is this guy? I would never give him this. This doesn't belong to him. Let me see that the script. Trying to see the description. Let me go back. Let me see. Yeah, Charles Seymour, sixth Duke of Somerset, of Petworth House, with a black page boy on his left leg. He displays the garter, collection of naturals, blah blah blah. So, um, on here it does say he got the garter, but it doesn't seem like it was this guy right here. Just going by the description. But anyways, we have a lot more to go through, so let's move on. William, Duke of Devonshire, Lord Steward of the household, was always a firm assertor of the liberties of his country and the Protestant religion, for which he met with several hardships in the King James reign. He took up arms at the Revolution and was by King William created Duke and had the Garter, was Lord Steward of the household all that reign, as he is still to the Queen. He has been the finest and handsomest gentleman of his time, loves ladies and plays, keeps a noble house and equipage, is tall, well made, and of princely behavior, of nice honor in everything, but the paying his tradesmen past 60 years old. Let me see, is this the next person? John, Duke of Buckinghamshire, Lord Privy Seal, was Earl of Mulgrave in the reign of King Charles II, had the Garter, and made a considerable figure at court. His presumptions made him make love to the Princess Anne, now Queen, for which he left the kingdom, but soon after he returned and was made Lord Chamberlain by King James. He opposed the revolution, nor did he ever enter into the measures of the court all King William's reign, yet was created by that king Marquis of Normandy. On the Queen's ascension to the throne, he was made of the cabinet Lord Privy Seal and Duke of Buckinghamshire. He is a noble man of learning and good natural parts, but of no principles. Violent for the high church, yet seldom goes to it. Ah, very proud, insolent, and covetous, and takes all advantages. in paying his debts unwilling, and is neither esteemed nor beloved. For, notwithstanding his great interest at court, it is certain he has none in either House of Parliament or in the country. He has a middle stature, of a brown complexion, with a sour, lofty look, near 60 years old. Here he is, John Sheffield, first Duke of Buckingham and Normanby. Here's a picture of him. Served as Lord Privy Seal. Let's keep going. Quartered arms of here is quartered arms. Yep, that totally matches the description. Anyways, let's move on some more. Thomas, Earl of Pembroke, President of the Council, is a representative of the ancient family of the Herberts in Wales. Being born a younger brother, he applied himself to the law and the knowledge of the constitution of his country. But his brother's death brought him into the House of Peers, where he makes a good figure. He was made Lord Privy Seal by King William, and in some time after President of the Council. Was first plenipotentiary at the Treaty of Ryswick, Ryswick, and after presiding some years at the Board of Admiralty, our most able seamen say that he only wanted the experience of going to sea to make the best admiral we have. He is a good judge in all the several sciences, is a great encourager of learning and learned men, a lover of the constitution of his country without being of a party, and yet esteemed by all parties, his life and conversation being after the manner of the primitive Christians, meek in his behavior, plain in his dress, speaks little, of a good countenance, though very ill shaped, a tall, thin, and stoops, about 50 years old. Sidney, Lord Godolphin, High Treasurer of England, is the second son of a good family in Cornwall. His page to King Charles II was page to King Charles II, ever of great application in the improvement of knowledge, and understood perfectly everything he undertook. When he was but very young, King Charles employed him in the affairs of the public and sent him to Holland on a negotiation that preceded the Treaty of Nigamin. Like I'm butchering all this shit. And during that reign and the two others succeeding, he was often employed in the management of the revenue, which he certainly understood better than any man in England. He was Lord Chamberlain to King James' Queen, and in King William's reign was often of the cabinet and one of the governors of the nation in the king's absence. This queen was deservedly made him Lord High Treasurer, in which station he had so improved the revenue and put it in so good a method, notwithstanding the debts of the nation, that money is lent to the public at 5 per cent. He was made a baron by King Charles II, and in all reigns has refused any higher titles, as he did the garter of the present queen, which he has since accepted of. He has an admirable, clear understanding of slow speech, with an awful serious deportment, does more than he promises, an enemy to flattery, shew and violence, a very hard access, but that being equally denied to all degrees of people, makes it supportable, of a low stature, thin, with a very black and stern countenance, near 60 years old. Here is Lord High Treasurer. Sidney, Earl of Godolphin. He has an admirable, clear understanding of slow speech with an awful serious deportment, does more than he promises, an enemy to flattery, shew in violence, a very hard access, that being equally denied to all degrees of people makes it supportable of a low stature, thin with a very black and stern countenance. There he is. High treasure. Moving on. Daniel, Earl of Nottingham, Secretary of State, is eldest son of Mr. Finch, Lord Chancellor in the reign of King Charles II. This gentleman never made any considerable figure till the Revolution, when he zealously opposed King William's coming to the throne, yet was made Secretary of State by that prince to oblige the church, of which he sets up for a mighty champion. After about 3 years serving his post, the jealousies of the people of his being in the French interest obliged the king to throw him out again. He opposed the abjuration of the Prince of Wales to that degree, that he shed tears when the bill passed, yet took the oath of the Queen Ascension to the throne, and was made Secretary of State again. But the jealousies of the people still continuing, and the House of Peers showing theirs also, in the affairs of the Scots plot, he laid down the seals. He is a zealous promoter of absolute power in the state, and implicit faith in the church to that degree as hardly to be in common charity with those of more moderate principles. He has also the exterior air of business and application enough to make him very capable. In his habit and manners very formal, a tall, thin, very black man, like a Spaniard or Jew, about 50 years old. Here he is, a Spaniard or Jew. Clearly a very black man here that we're looking at. Clearly a very black man. But hey, this is just what a secret agent said. Anyways, moving onward. Edward, Earl of Cersei, late Lord Chamberlain, is son to the late Sir Edward Villiers, a relation of the late Duke of Buckinghamshire. He was some considerable time a servant in the Prince of Orange's family in Holland, came over at the Revolution, was made Gentleman of the Horse to the Princess Mary, then made Queen. He continued in that profit till her death, in that post until her death, and was then made one of the Lords Justices, and in some time after was sent plenipotentiary to Holland and created Earl of Cersei. He relieved my Lord Portland in his embassy to France, and at his return in England was made Secretary of State, and in some little time after Lord Chamberlain, although he was principally concerning in the making of partition treaty, yet he was very active in the impeachment of those who its thought advised it, and was the handle by which the great turn then made in the administration was occasioned. On the Queen's ascension to the throne, he was continued in his office as Lord Chamberlain, but does not seem to have great interest at court, nor is he much regarded out of office. He has gone through all the great offices of the kingdom with a very ordinary understanding, was employed by one of the greatest kings there ever was in affairs of the greatest consequence, and yet a man of weak capacity. He makes a good figure in his person, being tall, well shaped, handsome, and dresses clean. And since the writing of these characters, he is turned out and succeeded by the Earl of Kent. He is turned of 45 years old. Lawrence, Earl of Rochester, is second son to Chancellor Hyde, Lord Clarendon, and uncle to the present Queen, one that has had all the improvement of education and experience with a good capacity. He was, when when very young, employed by King Charles II in foreign negotiations, and by King James made Lord High Treasurer of England, and had the Garter and created Earl of Rochester. He opposed King William's coming to the throne and generally thwarted the measures of that court till the king, to gain him in his party in the opposition of France upon the breach of partition treaty, made him Lord Lieutenant of Ireland and of the cabinet, but notwithstanding expectation, he was thrown out again, yet had always a very considerable pension during the king's reign. On the Queen's accession to the throne, he was again made Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, which he soon quitted, and not being made Lord High Treasurer, which he expected, he was so disgusted as not to come more to court. He is easily wound up to a passion, which is the reason why he often loses himself in the debate at the House of Peers, and the opposite party knew so well how to attack him as to make him great stock of knowledge fail him, as to make his great stock of knowledge fail him. He is, notwithstanding, one of the finest men in England for interests, especially the church party, and is very zealous for his friends. He is of a middle stature, well shaped, of a brown complexion, and about 60 years old. All right, here he is to the right, brown complexion. Moving on. It has been almost an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and skip to the other people I want to talk about, so we can kind of close this out. John, Duke of Newcastle, is the name of Hawes, was Earl of Clare before the Revolution, and married a daughter of the late Duke of Newcastle's, who died without heirs male. King William created this gentleman a duke and gave him the Garter. He has the best estate in England and employs most of his time in improving it. Is very covetous, yet makes a great figure at the seat of Yorkshire. Is firm for the constitution of his country, and has only one daughter, who will be the richest heiress in Europe. He is a black, ruddy complexioned man near 60 years old. Here he is. A ruddy complexioned man who um, has only one daughter who will be the richest heiress in Europe. You clearly see him to the right. Here's his coat of arms. Whoa, what's this on his coat of arms? Let me see. Man, bitch, zoom in. Those look like heads. Let me see. Question. Oh, riddle me this. He has faces on his shit. Why aren't they white faces? If he looks like why it why don't they look like him? It why aren't these on his crest? This is coat of arms. Why isn't a face like this on his coat of arms? Why is a face like this on why is this on his coat of arms? Anyways, let's keep going. After let me see. Charles Lenos of Richmond. Charles Lenos, Duke of Richmond, is son to King Charles II. Okay. Like I said earlier, King Charles II is a descendant of King Charles I. and King Charles I is a descendant of King James. Okay, let's keep that in mind. His son to King Charles II by the Duchess of Portsmouth. He was carried by his mother into France in the reign of King James and left France in the reign of King William when he declared himself for the religion and constitution of his country. He is a gentleman, good natured to a fault, very well bred, and has many valuable things in him. Is an enemy to business, very credulous, well shaped, black complexion, not much like King Charles, not 30 years old. So he looks like his daddy, or unless he's talking about King Charles the First. His daddy is King Charles the Second, but it's saying he looks like King Charles. It just says King Charles, so I'm assuming I believe it's just saying King Charles the First, and King Charles, unless it's talking about King James, not King, unless it's talking about King Charles the First, who is actually. So is it saying that he looks like his like grandpa? Because King Charles the Second is the son of King Charles the First, and then Charles Lenos, the Duke of Richmond, is the son of um, King Charles II. Even though I'm pretty sure he's uh supposed illegitimate. Yeah, yeah. So they're all related somehow. Anyways, well, not somehow. I mean, I just they're related. Anyways, next. George Fitzroy, Duke of Northumberland, son to King Charles II by the Duchess of Cleveland, was one of the captains of King James' Horse Guard, which he quitted at the Revolution and never had any post, though sometimes present from the King, all King William's reign. On the Queen's ascension to the throne, he was made Constable of Windsor Castle and Lieutenant General, and had My Lord of Oxford regiment of horse. He is a man of honor, nice in paying his debts, and living well with his neighbors in the country. Does not much care for the conversation of men of quality or business. Is a tall black man like his father, the king, about 40 years old. Well, big secret there. Well, if you couldn't fucking tell now, here's the book. Here, the secret agent is telling you right now that he is a black, quote unquote, black man like his father, the king. And who is the king? The king is King Charles. And who is the father of King Charles? The father of King Charles II is King Charles I of England. Who was the father of King Charles I of England? Father of King Charles I of England is King James, King James I. Um, but he was King James VI before then. Then he was renamed King James I. What did King James I do? The first Virginia Charter. What was the first Virginia Charter? It's a document from King James I of England to the Virginia Company assigning land rights to colonists for the stated purpose of propagating the Christian religion. The land is described as coastal Virginia and islands near the coast, but the surveying numbers correspond to modern day Florida to Maine. The patch of land itself would remain the property of the king. The king. Who is the king? The king is King James I of England. With the London Company and the Plymouth Company, the two divisions of the Virginia Company, as the king's tenants. So, sidetrack. We still got two more people I'm going to go over. I mean, it's kind of close to an hour. So, if this is true, King James, a colored man who was the king of England, had a charter to send his subjects over into America, which was not new, or the Americas, which was not new. It wasn't a new land by any means. He set up a charter to send his people over here to where we're currently at now. Just interesting. Interesting. So, I mean, okay, the charter is great and everything, um, but the question is, well, it's not really a question. He wrote the charter. All we need, well, it's we have this is we have the writing, we have the proof. Um, all I'm gonna say is we need uh an account, probably, of the description of his subjects, and I don't know what I'm talking. I don't. It's just so so this colored guy that was a king, um, and all his dukes, princes, all the people in his courts, over there in Europe, what we call Europe now, um, they were sending folks over here. What did the folks? This is something I still like. So I, from my understanding, what I've seen, what I've looked at, I'm I'm thinking those people. I mean, come on, I have these books. I have a whole bunch of other accounts. King James is a colored person, so therefore it would make sense to me to say King James was sending original people in the land that we call Europeans today, Europe today. He was sending them over here, and he did so in his charter. And we'll just stay with that. This is all we get. That's all I'm gonna say in this video. It would make sense to say so. Anyways, we got two more people. All right, we have Charles, Duke of St. Albans, is son to King Charles II by Miss Gwyn, was made by King William I of the bedchamber and captain of the band of pensioners, and sent by the king to France to congratulate the marriage of the Duke of Burgundy. He is a gentleman every way, de bon naturel, well fed, well bred, does not love business, is very well affectioned to the constitution of his country. He is of a black complexion, not so tall as the Duke of Northumberland, yet very like King Charles, turned of 30 years old. Here he is. Remember, he's not so tall as the Duke of Northumberland. Oh yeah, he's supposed to be. He doesn't look like this at all. Well, the spy, unless the spy is colorblind, um, unless the spy, unless Sophia spent, unless Sophia hired a colorblind spy, or a spy that was just retarded. And the Princess Sophia, um, that's what it is. Um, she just fucked up and hired a uh trash ass spy, that couldn't give the accurate descriptions of all the, the movers and shakers in England at that time, all the people of the royalty. You know, just hired an incompetent fool to write all these accounts, and that's that's what happened. That's what happened. Last person, Charles Fitzroy. Let me go and pull him up. Charles Fitzroy, Duke of Grafton, is grandson to King Charles II and son to the heir of Bennett. Earl of Arlington is a very pretty gentleman, has been abroad in the world, zealous for the constitution of his country, a tall black man about 25 years old. I would try to. I thing is, I can't read this. I would probably have to come back and read those. I mean, this writing, but it's kind of hard to read. Here he is, though. Last guy I want to touch up on. Here he is in all his favor. From the Natural Portrait Gallery. About as worthless as I don't know what. Yeah. Got a bunch of booty portraits, like booty portraits that not even accurate. Just trash. Anyways, we have the books. We don't need the pictures. We don't really need the pictures. That's where you fucked up. You shoulda got the books. Actually, you don't have the power to change the books. So you're really just wasting your time. I don't need the picture on the internet. I can just read the account of the colorblind idiot spy hired by Queen Princess Sophia of Hanover, um, who also he was also promoted somehow, even though he was a garbage spy. You know, according to Wikipedia, this guy saw all the famous people, all the royalty, and in this book called them said they described him as black, and he was just totally wrong according to Wikipedia and all these fucking stupid ass pictures and portraits. Man, where did these who makes these things? Back to my dude snatching the shit from him. Like, this is not yours. This is just even the dog, man. The dog knows what's up. He doesn't know him. Who are you? Don't know you. Stranger. You weren't here. Anyways, I'm gonna have to so much more in this book. Um, and unfortunately, I could only briefly go into the importance of, the James, Charleses, all of them. But all the royalty is just littered in this book. Um, let me go back to the table of the context. I read a lot of pages today. This was longer than I thought it was going to be. Um, let me see. Writes a view of King James Court at Saint Germain, and then Mr. Mackey goes to the courts of Germany, and at the Princess Sophia's desire gave her the characters of the English and Scots nobility. So I just read off English and Scottish nobility. Yep, described as black. Um, and that's one thing I'll say in this book, in the memoirs. Um, they do say they do have they use fair as like they say fair complexion or they say black, which I know nowadays fair means like fair is synonymous with like white skin, or white people have kind of put in this idea where, oh, she has fair skin, that means she's white. Um, I think, well, fair in my, I mean, fair, the etymology of the word fair is just like they just have a nice complexion, or they're just handsome or beautiful. So when somebody is described as fair, there's also one person in the book that's called they have a fair like brown complexion. So I just think that's also describing a person, a colored person, pretty much. It's just nowadays when somebody says somebody is fair, they um, automatically believe that it's a white person. And if you know anything about etymology, I would just say that a person that assumes someone that is described um, as fair, I would say that they are a nice person. If you know anything about etymology, if you assume that fair means white, you are a nice person. Anyways, that's all I have today. It was not supposed to be this long. I'm an idiot. I fucked up a lot. But um, if this kind of information, just learning about royalty, English, and the Scots, um, yeah, I mean, it even goes into more of the nobility of just that Europe and that area over there. Yeah, it's just so much great stuff. Um, awesome. And if we go back to the book, it's not the only information we got. We also got information from this guy, this guy, and this guy. So we're gonna have to come back and talk about those guys, especially this guy right here. Fuck this guy. Yeah, this guy. Let me see. Hmm, we'll get to it. We will get to it. I don't know. Probably next video. I don't know. We'll see. Um, read this book. Um, so many. I mean, so many people. Um, in history. It's ironic. February just ended. None of these people are being talked about. Um, even though I think February is a joke. Um, having somebody's history. No, having every single person of color, even though they are not related, all their history being relegated to 1 month is just foolishness and stupid. But none of these people are being talked about. Even so. So, I mean, if you think, um, if you didn't research anything in quote unquote Black History Month, why don't you just give this book a read and, look into some of these people of royalty, dukes, princes, uh, what, statesmen. Well, you just look into it. Mm, it's just awesome. About 350 pages. You can find it online. Just get a PDF of it. All right, that's all I have to say. In the video, I'll probably have some up soon. All right.